Hello everybody, this is Piteio from Veil of the Ages. Today we talk about the Druid. If you've seen the last video about the match between Sweden and Italy from the Arena World Cup, you will know why we are interested today in looking at how this Druid plays out. She has been sculpted by Joël from the Ninth Age forum and staff, printed by Joël, painted by Joël, and sent via post by Joël to me. I love this little model that's evoking these tentacles from the ground. As you can see from the profile, a druid of the Sylvan Elves is essentially a basic elf, has the profile of a basic elf with 3 health points, lightning reflexes, which make it easier to hit the enemy in combat applies, as for all elves. We also have Forest Walker and Tree Singing, which are 2 specific rules for the Sylvan Elves. The Wizard is a Wizard Apprentice, but we bought the Wizard Master upgrade. It's a Wizard Master of Shamanism, as you see from the bottom row. And he also has the upgrades for the 2 Sylvan weapons, the longbow and the blades. The build was made by Chack, who also played with the Druid in the last video. He knew what he was doing, I suppose. So let's quickly go through all of the rules. First rule is the forest follows. It's a general rule from the Sylvan Elves, which means that you can position a forest terrain feature in your half of the arena battlefield. We changed things a tiny little bit so that they could be appropriate for the type of arena deployment that we have. It makes all of the other forests dangerous terrain, except if you have Strider Forest, which of course the Druid has, because it has a Forest Walker, which means Strider's Forest. We'll see that in a second. Now, this means that we need a forest terrain in addition to the ones that we already have in the arena. As you see here in the arena, we have impassable terrain, hill and field, and we also have some ruins and another hill over here, but that means that we need a forest, and that's why we use the forest from the Ninth Age 2D top view mats. Okay, so this is in regard to the forest follows. We've seen that in terms of global rules, the Druid also has Forest Walker and Tree Singing. So Tree Singing means that you can move this forest around if you discard 1 Veil token in your magic phase, and you can move this forest around up to 6 inches. This is good to keep in mind because the Druid interacts a lot with the forest. So for example, as you can see from this other Forest Walker special universal rule, if the Druid is inside the forest, you must reroll all 2 wound rolls of 1 when you are attacking in close combat your enemy. So it gives you extra prowess in combat. And we will see that later on as well. Let's quickly look at the enchantments here. So we have the Sylvan Blades enchanted with the Spirit of the Whirlwind. So first of all, Sylvan Blades means that they are paired weapons. So +1 attack, +1 offensive skill, ignore parry of the opponent. But in addition, you get +1 armor penetration. And the Spirit of the Whirlwind also gives you +1 attack, +1 strength, lethal strike, magical attacks. There's a lot of stuff going on, that's good. This is in the offense department. In the defense department, you're gonna have the Glyph of Amril, which means that you cannot be stomped, even if for the moment being it's not crucial, given the people that we have in the arena now. Who knows what happens with the Empire of Sunstar polls that we are now running on our Patreon page. We'll see. cannot be stomped, but essentially when you fight a duel, you get +3 defensive skill. And since you have defensive skill of 4, then you jump to 7, and you're only going to be hit with a 3+ by opponents with offense skill of 8, which is a lot. So this is a very nice artifact in this context. And then Talisman of Shielding, which means Aegis 5+. This is from the defense side. We also have a longbow. It's a Sylvan longbow, hitting on a 3+. Sylvan longbow means 30 inches, strength 3, but it has armor penetration 1 and quick to fire, so you can move and shoot with no penalty, advance and shoot with no penalty. Also, when you are in short range, strength becomes 4. This is really nice. I've seen this bow deal a wound to the deceiver in the last match. Okay? So this is more or less the build for the druid: the longbow, the blades with the whirlwind, the glyph of Amril, the talisman. We've seen Forest Walker Entry Singing. We've seen the lightning reflexes. We talked about a bit all of it, except for the fact that this druid is a wizard master. And so let's have a brief conversation on the shamanism and the hereditary spell that the druid can use. Now, keep in mind while doing all of this that the flux cards that we use for the arena are the free-for-all cards, the ones that you see here. It's a supplement from the 9th age. We won't go into this supplement now because otherwise the video will definitely be too long. Let's just look at the hereditary spell and the shamanism spell, knowing that as a wizard master you can choose 4 of these spells here. Number 1, hereditary spell, the Forest Embrace. This is a very easy to cast spell with a 4+. It lasts 1 turn, and it's an augment spell that you can cast on your own druid, essentially, since you can now cast on. You don't have any other units from the Sylvan Elves in the arena context most of the time. This is a very nice spell, I think, that makes you stronger in combat or makes the opponent weaker in combat. You can cast it with only power level 4. And in that case, that means that you put a forest underneath your model. And as you've seen, since we have the Forest Walker rule, it means that you get to reroll the ones to wound, which is interesting because you have lethal strike because of the Spirit of the Whirlwind. So every one that you can turn into a 6, it's something that you're gonna love having. Maybe this is not an excellent effect. It's only cast on a 4+, but if you want, you can cast the boosted version on a 7, and that means that enemy units in base contact with the target must reroll natural to hit rolls of 6. And this is starting to become very interesting, because if you reroll to hit, then you have Shamanism, as we'll see in a second. I can create problems for you in wounding as well. And then I have the Aegis save coming from the Talisman of Shielding. Considering that I might have defense skill 7, so most opponents will hit on a base of 4+, -1 to hit for one spell, reroll 6s for the other one, only wound at best with 5+, then I still have the Talisman of Shielding. It means that this elf, she has armor 0 and resilience 3, you might need to dish some 70 attacks on her to take away those 3 health points. I'm not going to go into the maths now, but you know, Forest Embrace boosted version might be more interesting that we've seen so far. Now, let's have a look at the other spells. So we said Shamanism. That means spell number 1 is Awaken the Beast. either I give you +1 strength and penetration or +1 resilience on the druid herself. As you see here, what's very interesting for every spell from Shamanism is that melee attacks against the target can never wound on better than 5+ if you cast any spell from Shamanism. So if you are in combat, who cares that you're squishy and you have resilience 3 and practically everybody in this arena has a strength of 5 or more. So normally you would be wounded on a 2+, you cast whichever spell from Shamanism, you can only be wounded at best on a 5+ by them. So that's a great effect. Swarm of insects. If your enemy has armor and Aegis save, it's probably not going to deal a lot of damage. You do have the limitation to the shooting attacks, but maybe in the arena that's not the crucial thing. Anyway, this is a 5+ spell that triggers the scarification attribute, so it's also interesting only for that. Probably, if I were looking for a 5+ spell that can trigger the scarification, I will go with the Savage Fury, because Battle Focus is nice, you know, you roll a 6 and you double the attacks. Fearless is nice because you have several opponents who cause fear. And Frenzy, it might be interesting to use, especially as universal spell on the opponent. So if you are thinking of luring the opponent into charging you by forcing a discipline check with maximized roll, you know, that can make the enemy charge when the enemy is too far away, and that gives you a stand and shoot reaction for free, and you know that can also be used on the opponent. In any case, Battle Focus for yourself might not be a bad thing to have anyway. This is probably Chilling Howl is probably the least interesting spell in this context. Maybe I might be wrong, especially for units against gladiators who have magic missiles or can shoot. Might be interesting as well. -1 to wound modifier on shooting and on ranged attacks. Remember that you get the scarification that improves your being wounded chances, resilience in melee. So this will be an all-rounded effect. Probably the most beloved spell here in this context is the Totemic Summon. This spell summons a Totemic Beast and puts it on the arena field. You can either put it next to the board edge or inside by casting the appropriate version. Since this is not one of the gladiators, but it's just a spell, I can show you that we have a miniature for the Totemic Beast that you can see here. This is scratch built by Borgio from the 9th Age forum, and so this is a full 3D mini that you can use to represent the Totemic Beast. And of course, we also have the appropriate line of sight. I mean, you don't really need a line of sight because the Totemic Beast has random movement, but you need to know whether your opponent is within range or not. So, for example, you evoke the Totemic Beast here, and then you want to check next turn whether you can hit the Duke, and you know that you need to roll a 16 on the 3 dice. Yeah. So normally all of the other gladiators also have line of sight. I'm going to prepare them and publish them as soon as we reach the stretch goal in our Patreon page. Right, so we were talking about this Totemic Beast, the Totemic Summon. Yes, this evokes a beast with 3 health points and 4 attacks, strength 5, as a breath attack, an attack from a distance on the turn on which it is evoked. It's only strength 3 and armor penetration 0, but you know, what do you know? yeah, so this can be very practical, especially in combination with the Savage Fury. So, you know, I put that Totemic Beast over there. You can see the beast. I am too far away. You fail the maximize test. You're obliged to go in that direction, and I can further shoot you and cast buffs on me on the Totemic Beast. Can be interesting. Also, Awaken the Beast on the Totemic Beast. Awaken the summoned beasts. It's a story of beasts and being summoned and awakened. I know that doesn't make much sense, but +1 strength and armor penetration or resilience, it's interesting. Strength 6, armor penetration 3, 4 attacks. That's something that you might start to worry about, even with offense 3. But, you know, strength 6 and armor penetration 3 becomes interesting. Resilience 6, even with no armor and no other Aegis save, resilience 6 can keep your opponent busy for a while. Also remember that if this thing pops up and then your opponent decides to charge you as the druid, this Totemic Beast can always charge from the rear if you're still alive after the first round. So independent of whether you are in a duel or not, this Totemic Beast can bring +3 combat resolution, and you know, it's not a bad thing to have in your arsenal. That brings us to the last spell, Break the Spirit, which has been a favorite spell in the last matches. I've seen it taken quite often. The opponent suffers a -1 to hit modifier. So remember, Forest Embrace, you can force the opponent to reroll 6s to hit. You have defense 7 in a duel, so that might mean that your opponent only hits you with a 5, and if it rolls a 6, has to roll again either a 5 or 6. That's reducing to, I don't know, 22% the chances of hitting. Then you have Scarification, so you reduce by 66% the chances of wounding, even if normally you would hit with a 2. And then you have a 5+ Aegis save. So that's how I said that your opponent might need to make 70 attacks onto the druid to make those 3 wounds, to deal those 3 wounds. Of course, there's also the dangerous terrain too, but you don't see many flee movements. For example, you don't see a lot of pursue and overrun in the arena. So it's essentially only for marching and charging, which, you know, it's completely valid. It's a bit of a high casting value, but, you know, -1 to hit modifier cast on an 8, and this reroll natural to hit rolls of 6 cast on a 7. You have, like, you know, a total casting value of, you know, maybe a couple of dice for this one and a couple of dice for the other one. And if you're lucky, you know, you should get a 7, and you're a wizard master, so you get a +1. So maybe with 4 dice, you could be able to cast both of them, and you can get 4 dice from the free-for-all cards. There's no dispel with the free-for-all, so, you know, it can be a lot of defense power with a combination of Forest Embrace and Break the Spirit. Forest Embrace the Spirit. What else? So this is a very brief overview on the druids that we have in the arena. I hope that this clarifies some of the complex aspects of interaction between spells and terrain and flux cards and the profile itself and the type of opponents that you have there. I won't go into the details of who is the opponent that the druid fears the most. Probably I'll simply say that the deceiver might send missiles from afar. That might be a decent build. You don't really need to negate the weapon or any other specific enchantment from the druid, so probably the other elf, the high prince, and the duke might not be the best to fight against him. So yeah, we'll see how things evolve in the arena. But it's interesting to notice that the druid was not selected in the first 2 arena matches. It was the only one miniature that didn't get picked by the players, and then in the third it was picked, and it whipped everybody else into submission. So interesting build brought to us by Chack. All right. So thank you for watching, and see you on Monday for the next match in the Arena World Cup, which is going to be between Sweden and Germany. It's going to be a fun one. Bye guys, see you.